Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing how to cope with infertility and miscarriages, which is definitely not an easy topic to talk about, but I think it's really important for people to know some strategies in order to kind of get through this really challenging time in their life. So first of all, if you're somebody who's going through infertility, you probably are experiencing all sorts of emotions, all sorts of feelings. I shared them in my previous videos. And so, you know that for me, I felt a sense of failure. I felt like the job of a woman is to be able to have a family and you should be able to do it seamlessly. And so for me, I felt like a failure when I was told that I needed to have fertility treatment in order to have a family. I had just felt like, why could I not do this one basic thing that a female should be able to do? So I felt like a true failure, and I was really angry about that. I was angry that I couldn't control the outcome. I could certainly embark on my experience with fertility treatment, but there was nothing that I could have done to prevent where I was that day that I found out I would need help. And so for me, those are the feelings that I had when I was going through my fertility treatment and as I began it. In terms of coping with miscarriages, though, that's a completely different subject. And so I initially had felt some shock. I felt a lot of shame. I I was very surprised by the outcome and I didn't know what to do about it. I was upset with myself. I had faced some disbelief in not getting the outcome that I had worked so hard twice for, and it didn't work in my favor. It didn't do what I had wanted in the end. And so then I also went through a period of not really understanding, why this happened. People always say, things happen for a reason. And I was trying really hard to figure out what the reason for my losses was. And to this day, I don't know. And I don't think that there is a reason for people to experience that type of pain. I really don't. And so that was really hard for me to grapple with, and it still is to this day. But then I went through a period of self blame, and I felt like, what's wrong with me? What did I do? What did I do to cause this outcome in my body? Which then led to self loathing. I really did not like myself for a period of time because I blamed myself for my unsuccessful outcome, and it wasn't my fault. And I really had to understand that it wasn't my fault. There was nothing that I could have done to prevent my outcome in each of my two situations. So for me, I had shock and I had shame, but then came the grief that went along with it. And I felt sorry. I felt sorry for myself. I felt sorry for my husband. I felt sorry for the loss of my babies, my two babies that I wish I could have one day met, but will never get the chance to meet. And so, how to cope with that feeling of grief, especially for me, I was dealing with it back to back. Nobody teaches you what to do. You kind of have to just figure it out on your own. And so, I want to talk about how to cope with infertility and with miscarriages. Now, the first couple of strategies that I'm going to share with you, I did initially as I was undergoing my first two frozen embryo transfers, and then some of the strategies I'll share later are really what helped me push me through the point where I was able to keep pursuing fertility treatment. So initially, I felt like it was important to be open with my husband, be open with your partner. Your partner is the person that you live with, and you need their support. You need to have a support system behind you. And if you don't communicate to them how you feel, it's going to be so much more challenging to go through infertility or to go through miscarriages. You're not the only person that's experiencing this. So by sharing how you feel with them allows them to open up to you as well. Next, I reached out to my family and my close friends. Now, I understand not everybody has a positive relationship with their families and might not feel comfortable to do so. For me, I certainly felt like I was in a place where this was essential for me to share with them. my infertility journey in addition to the outcomes that I had had in the past. And so that's what I would like to call my inner circle. So my husband, my family, my close friends, they make up my inner circle. And so reaching out to those people allows you to create a support system that could help to pick you up when you've fallen down again and again. Now, some people might have an animal. Pets are really great. If you have a pet, you could play with your pet. I don't have a pet, but I have my son Jeremy, so spending a lot of time with him throughout this entire journey has really been essential. He truly helps to pick me up when I'm feeling down, no matter what mood I'm in. He always manages to put a smile on my face. So that's definitely an advantage if you already have a child or if you do have a pet of some kind. I also listened to audiobooks. You can certainly read as well, but for me, going through fertility treatment and going through my two losses, I needed something that would distract my mind. And I felt like, for me personally, reading a book, it didn't distract my mind as much as listening to an audiobook. So for me, I preferred an audiobook, but every person is different. Certainly give, both of them a shot and see what works for you. And I would go on walks. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to exercise the entire time I was undergoing fertility treatment. I'm a huge advocate for physical activity. It is a huge part of my life, at least it was prior to this experience. And so it was really hard for me to kind of cope with this entire journey without that important part of my life that really helped to regulate me. And so I went on walks. It was what I could do, and I just had to accept that. And so that was helpful to an extent, I'll say. Now, if you're able to exercise, I would encourage you to do that. If you're unable to, like I was unable to, then a walk is certainly fine as well. But I finally got to a point where, all these basic things were all fine and good. We've probably heard of all of these strategies before, and maybe you've tried every single one, and they probably haven't gotten you to a place where you've felt that great. If you're somebody who is going through infertility or has had a miscarriage or even multiple miscarriages. And so I continued to do all of these things, but I still struggled, and I recognized that I needed more help. And so what I decided to do is I saw a fertility counselor. My fertility practice had one on staff, and so I scheduled an appointment and I had a consultation with her and I gave it a shot. I think it's an option that works really well for some people. For me personally, it's not something that I continued to pursue, but I think seeing a counselor does help many people. I understand that my fertility practice also arranges support groups. However, the support groups met on weekends. Of course, this was all through Zoom, given the time that we're living in right now. And so, since I do have a son, the timing just didn't quite work out for me and my son's schedule in order for me to really participate in those Zoom sessions. And so, that is something that I didn't do, but certainly could have done. So, I encourage you to reach out to your fertility practice, see what counselors on staff, how you can get an appointment, if your insurance covers it or not, what support groups they have available. Those are great things to do. I also decided to listen to some podcasts, and I decided that it would be helpful to educate myself on how to deal with grief and how to heal, how to face the pain that I was experiencing. And through my podcasting search, I came across what was called Beat Infertility, which is probably one of my favorite podcasts that I'm currently listening to right now. And I think it's so great because they not only educate you, but they also share stories of other people in their infertility journeys. And so I think for me, it was really important to kind of hear that I wasn't alone in this community and that other people too are struggling, and to hear how they eventually had a successful outcome was something that really made me hopeful. And so I would definitely recommend that podcast if you've never heard of it before. They also have a website and they also have an app. So check it out. It's Beat Infertility. And so Then what I did, because although I was finding these new things and I was trying them out, I still felt like I wasn't fully healed. And I don't know if I'll ever get to that place where I'm fully healed. But what I could do is I could just keep trying new things. And that's what I did. And so I joined, I was a part of the Facebook group for my fertility center. And so I had been a part of it for years, just because my son, I had him a couple years ago. And so I was already a part of that community, but I had never really checked it, um, guilty enough. And so I decided one day to just look and see what resources, if any, could be found on the Facebook group page of my fertility center. And it turns out they had just posted about this virtual summit that was had in the beginning of November. It was called the Infertility Virtual Summit. And it was actually it actually was connected to the podcast that I had listened to, which was so ironic because I had just stumbled upon this podcast and now I just came across this virtual summit. And so it was free. All of the recordings you could still rewatch and participate in. And so I thought that that was a really great find for me. So if you are not already part of the Facebook page of your fertility group, I recommend seeing if they have one and see if there's anything on there. And if not, then at least you've tried. Facebook is something very tricky that I will talk to you about later, but this was one positive in terms of Facebook. And so while I was listening to one of the videos through the Beat Infertility Virtual Summit, I came across one of the speakers who had talked about this new website and app that was created to connect people who are going through fertility challenges. And so it seemed like a really great thing. It's called the Fertility Tribe, and I'll post this all in the description box so you don't have to worry about these resources. I'll post them all there. But so it's called the Fertility Tribe, and they have a website, and then you could, once you sign up, you could download their free app, and you could search for people who have the same diagnosis that you do. You could search for people based on location. There are virtual hangout sessions where you could meet and just support one another. You could have conversations. You can read about different topics of your interest, all related to fertility. And so it was a really great place. I've met a lot of people through there. Everybody is extremely supportive, and it's just been really helpful to know that I and you are not in this alone. And so, if you've never heard of it before, please check it out. Another place that I have found to be helpful, I don't go on it all the time, but when I was pregnant with Jeremy, I came across this app called Peanut, and the intent, it was really meant to connect people who are pregnant or people who are new moms trying to just meet other new moms or other people who are also pregnant. And so I was a part of this group, but I had had my son for quite some time, and so I wasn't active on it by any means. But I decided that I wanted to just see if there were any support groups through that platform. And it turns out there was. And so I had come across a multiple miscarriages group on that particular app. And so that's a place that I go to as well to connect with other people going through what I'm going through. And what I've learned is that the more connected you are, the better you feel about yourself. And that was another reason that really pushed me to create these videos in the first place. I really want people to feel connected. And so I'm hoping that with these strategies that you've learned at least one new one to try to help you heal, to help you cope with infertility, if you're having a miscarriage, if you've had a miscarriage, I should say. But I've also used another app, and it's called Calm. Now, the Calm app is really great for meditation. It's great to teach you about stress and all these different topics. So I think that that's another really great place. It's not a place to necessarily network with others going through what you're going through, but it is a really great place to kind of heal your mind. And all these strategies are all fine and good, except for eventually you have to face reality. And I went through kind of like a vicious downward cycle, I might say. And what I mean by that is with this quarantine, with everybody social distancing, I don't really go many places, especially if you are undergoing fertility treatment. You know that if you get COVID, your cycle gets canceled, which was a big fear in my mind. I didn't want to go anywhere because I didn't want to risk stopping my treatment protocol at any given moment. And so I did go out just a couple of times, one of the times being a pumpkin patch, and I was so not ready to go to the pumpkin patch. I, in my mind, just figured it would be a nice time with my husband and with my son, but really it was depressing to me. And I saw pregnant people all over, left and right, no matter where I looked. It just looked like there were just bumps that were sticking out in front of my face everywhere. And it was just really painful to see. And nobody meant anything by it. People can't, control if they're pregnant or not. And nobody would have tried to upset me. But in my mind, I didn't prepare myself after having my two miscarriages. I didn't prepare myself for what I might see going to a pumpkin patch. And who thinks about what do you have to prepare for? You're going to see pumpkins, you're going to see hay rides and whatnot. But I didn't expect to see baby bumps, and that was really, really hard for me. And so I caution you, if if you're going out to a place that is going to have a lot of people, just mentally prepare and know that this is a possibility. That nobody means to upset you, but it is something you're just going to have to face one way or another. Um, another time, another kind of arena that really frustrated me was I would join group Zoom calls with friends, and it just kind of seemed like every time I joined a Zoom call, somebody new would announce that they were expecting, or somebody that they knew was expecting. And it's like, okay, great. I'm, here on the other end of things. And for me, I just had two miscarriages, and now I'm hearing that you're expecting. And that just sucks. Or somebody you know is expecting, and that sucks. And like, you want to be happy for them, but you don't know how. So that was also really hard for me. So going out in public, Zoom calls, who would have thought would be painful. And then seeing pregnancy announcements on Facebook. I would say this was the biggest trigger for me, was seeing pregnancy announcements, because it wasn't just like one or two here or there. It got to the point where it felt like every single week, multiple times a week, I would see new announcements. And so over time, this became very, very painful. And you want to be happy for those people, and you know that they're just posting because they're excited about their situation. However, because of what you're going through, it's hard to see, it's hard to face, and it depressed me. And I didn't know what to do about it. I came to the conclusion that these things were triggers for me. And I had to go off of Facebook because it was truly a toxic environment for my emotional health. It did me no good. And so I had to say no to Facebook. And right now I'm not sure when I'll go back, but I needed to just kind of pause, and I needed to really evaluate, how was this making me feel, and what could I do about it. I knew I couldn't control other people getting pregnant, and nor should I. That is not my position. But I could control seeing messages pop up on my newsfeed. And so I had to just step away. And it is okay to do that. I think everybody needs to give themselves permission to just step back and do what you need to do so that you can heal yourself. And I'm still not fully to that place. I think I still have work to do, but I've done a lot of different things to get me to the place where I am today. If you have additional strategies, please go ahead and post a comment below. And if you're new here and you've not already done so, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you can learn about all the new content that I post. Thanks for watching.